Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. About 5 years ago, I met a woman named Lisa Burrows, who is in Ashtabula, Ohio, had an interest in African American faces of the Civil War. A book that I wrote was published in 2012 by Johns Hopkins University Press. We got to talking, and she had a great idea, which was to have a traveling exhibit of photographs of Black soldiers in blue. That turned out to be a wonderful experience. It was in June of 2019 at the Hubbard House Underground Railroad Museum in Ashtabula. It was so successful, in fact, that the folks that run the Hubbard House purchased the exhibit, and it's still on display there. So the next stop was interrupted by COVID, but now it's back. The traveling show is back. We're redoing it, and its second appearance or first post COVID appearance will be at the Goodrich Freedom Center and Underground Railroad Museum in York, Pennsylvania. It's coming up in April. You can find out more details about it closer to the event. So, as part of the new exhibits, we're expanding it and adding some additional photographs, including this image here of a soldier who served in the U.S. colored troops. And it's part of the Library of Congress collection. I want to share it with you because there's a story behind this photograph because there's so little that we know about this man. So let me start with the description in the Library of Congress collection. It says Sergeant Tom Strawn, that's Strawn, of Company B, 3rd U.S. Colored Troops, USCT, Heavy Artillery Regiment, with revolver in front of painted backdrop showing balustrade and landscape. That's all we have. Oh, we also know that it's a tintype. It's the format of the photograph, a popular format during the Civil War period. You may have noted that the caption, the description on the Library of Congress's website notes he's a sergeant. However, you won't see any chevrons on his sleeves, and I don't see evidence that he was carrying a non-commissioned officer's sword. Two items that you would expect to see on a sergeant, at least one that was in full uniform. However, he does have a rectangular non-commissioned officer's belt plate, so that supports the idea that he's a sergeant. So I thought I would search for details about Tom's life because I need to write a caption that is going to be included beneath these large reprints that we're making of photographs that are part of the exhibit. So I began searching for details of his military service. And my first stop was his military service record, which provides the very basic details on a monthly basis of his time in the service from 1863 to 1866. And you know what? That's all I found. Nothing else. He did not file for a pension, or if he was married, his wife didn't file for one. There's no genealogical record on Ancestry.com. There's no Find a Grave record. There's no mention of him on newspapers.com. There's no mention of him in Google Books, the hundreds of thousands, probably millions of volumes in the 19th and 20th centuries. No mention. You can check out the Internet Archive, another book repository. Nothing. No information except that military service record. So, what is that military service record, which itself doesn't have that many details in it, but there's enough to give us the sense of who he was as a person and where he was, just a little bit, just to give us some sense of who Tom Strawn was. So here's what we know. When the 1st Tennessee Heavy Artillery of African descent formed in 1863, men from the Memphis area volunteered to serve in its ranks. This is where the regiment was formed. Of those original members on the rolls, you'll find Tom Strawn. He gave his age at 25, which, if you do the math, suggests that he was born about 1838, and his birthplace as Germantown, Tennessee, which is not too far outside of Memphis. So we have a sense that he grew up or was somewhere around that area in 1863. Was he an enslaved person who lived on a farm or somewhere in that vicinity, and his enslaver gave him the permission to join the army, maybe collected some money for doing that? Did Strawn escape his enslavement from another state and become a refugee and wound up in Tennessee? These are questions we don't know. Was he possibly a free man who was in one of the northern border states and crossed the line to enlist? Questions we don't know. It's nearby the Mississippi River. Perhaps he came that way. Again, unanswered questions, but we do know that he was from Germantown and he enlisted. That regiment, the 1st Tennessee Heavy Artillery, they became, when they mustered into federal service into the U.S. Army, they became known, redesignated, if you will, as the 3rd U.S. Colored Heavy Artillery. Now, the regiment spent the next 3 years in the defenses of Memphis, much of the time at Fort Pickering. Now, Strawn's record, if you look at the monthly reports, you'll find that he receives a promotion first to corporal and then to sergeant. And he's appointed to the regiment's color guard. And at one point, for quite a while, in fact, he serves as the color bearer. Now, this is a position of honor. This is a position that the trusted soldiers, the respected soldiers will receive. And so that tells us something about Tom Strawn. He was a man of character who performed well in the ranks, first as a private at his original enlistment, and then receiving 2 promotions, and then assignment on detached duty with the color guard as the color bearer. Again, quite an honor. Now, Strawn remained in the regiment until the end of his service, and that was in 1866, about a year after the war ended. At that point, the regiment was no longer needed. It was disbanded. The men, Strawn included, were given their final paychecks and went home. Where his home was, where he went, we don't know. That's the last time that I was able to find his name on any government record. Now, still a work in progress, and I'm always confident, that soldiers like Tom Strawn, for whom so little is known, their paper trail is so narrow, so little to be known. I still want to believe that some document is out there waiting to be found. Maybe it'll be me, maybe it'll be you, but hopefully something will turn up that will help us understand more about the life of Tom Strawn and his contributions during his time in the U.S. Army. One thing is for sure, this photograph and the caption that I'm finishing writing today will be part of the exhibit at the Goodrich Freedom Center and Underground Railroad Museum in York, PA. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on a Civil War Research Trail.